I've spent years studying the historical evidence for Jesus, and what I've found might surprise you. In the next 8 minutes, we're going to explore some of the most compelling evidence for Jesus' existence and resurrection. This isn't just about religion. It's about history and the impact of one extraordinary claim that changed the world. So, buckle up. You're about to see Jesus in a whole new light. The historical evidence for Jesus is overwhelming. Virtually all historians, Christian, atheist, agnostic, you name it, agree that Jesus of Nazareth was a real person who lived in 1st century Judea. We're not just talking about the Bible here. Roman historians like Tacitus, Jewish writers like Josephus, and even the Babylonian Talmud mention Jesus. These sources confirm key details about his life and death. Tacitus writes about Christus being executed under Pontius Pilate during the reign of Tiberius. That's exactly what the Gospels claim. It's like finding multiple independent witnesses to an event. It strengthens the case that something really happened. Jesus' death wasn't just any death. The Romans were experts at execution, and crucifixion was their specialty. It was reserved for the worst criminals and rebels. There's no record of anyone surviving a full Roman crucifixion. The Journal of the American Medical Association even published a study on this, concluding that Jesus likely died from asphyxiation. The Alexamenos Graffito, an ancient piece of Roman graffiti, mocks a Christian for worshiping a crucified man. It's crude, but it shows that even Jesus' opponents in the early days didn't deny his crucifixion. They mocked it, but they didn't question that it happened. That's powerful evidence that Jesus' death by crucifixion was a well-known fact. The Gospels stand out as incredibly early accounts. They were written within the lifetime of eyewitnesses to Jesus' ministry and resurrection. That's huge in historical terms. It means people could fact-check these claims. Luke explicitly states he interviewed eyewitnesses and followed the best historical practices of his time. Here's something remarkable. There is actually more historical evidence for Jesus' death and resurrection than for most famous non-biblical figures from the ancient world. Historians rely on far fewer sources for people like Julius Caesar or Alexander the Great, yet the evidence for Jesus is abundant and well documented from multiple independent accounts. But it's not just the Gospels. Paul's letters, especially 1 Corinthians 15, contain what scholars call an early creed about Jesus' resurrection. Paul lists appearances to Peter, James, the 12 disciples, and even to over 500 people at once. He basically says most of these folks are still alive. Go ask them. The empty tomb is a fascinating piece of the puzzle. Here's the kicker. Even Jesus' opponents admitted the tomb was empty. They didn't deny it. Instead, they claimed the disciples stole the body. That's like admitting the bank vault is empty, but arguing over who took the money. What's more, all 4 Gospels report that women were the first to discover the empty tomb. In 1st century Jewish culture, women's testimony wasn't considered reliable in court. If you were making up a story, you wouldn't choose women as your primary witnesses. It's an embarrassing detail that actually lends credibility to the account. The transformation of Jesus' followers is one of the most compelling pieces of evidence. Before the resurrection, the disciples were fearful, hiding from authorities. After, they became bold proclaimers of Jesus' resurrection, willing to face persecution and death. What could cause such a dramatic change? They claimed it was encountering the risen Jesus. Take James, Jesus' brother. During Jesus' ministry, James didn't believe in him, but after the resurrection, he became a leader in the early church. Or consider Paul, formerly Saul of Tarsus. He went from persecuting Christians to becoming Christianity's most influential missionary. Both eventually died for their faith. People might die for a lie they believe is true, but not for something they know is a lie. Skeptics have proposed alternative explanations for centuries. The swoon theory suggests Jesus didn't really die. But remember the Roman expertise in execution and the medical evidence we discussed earlier. The idea of a badly wounded man convincing his followers he had conquered death doesn't hold up. Mass hallucination? Psychologists tell us that's not how hallucinations work, especially not with 500 people at once, as Paul claimed. As we wrap up, let's take a closer look at some of the most compelling historical evidence for Jesus' existence and resurrection. This time through the lens of renowned authors and apologists Cliff Knechtel and Lee Strobel. Cliff Knechtel, in his book Give Me an Answer, emphasizes the reliability of eyewitness testimony. He points out that the New Testament accounts were written within the lifetimes of those who witnessed the events, making it difficult for myths or legends to develop unchecked. Knechtel also highlights the dramatic transformation of skeptics like Paul and James, who initially doubted or even opposed Jesus, but ultimately became devoted followers after encountering what they claimed was the risen Christ. Lee Strobel, a former legal journalist and author of The Case for Christ, brings a fresh investigative approach. He notes the early dating of the gospel accounts, some of which, according to scholars, were being circulated just a few decades after Jesus' death. Strobel also points to the willingness of the disciples to face persecution and even death rather than deny their testimony. He argues that people may die for what they believe is true, but almost never for what they know is a lie. Both Knechtel and Strobel assert that the convergence of these factors, eyewitness reliability, the transformation of skeptics, early documentation, and the courage of the first disciples, forms a strong cumulative case for the resurrection. Their research, books, and public debates continue to challenge and inspire audiences worldwide. By considering these unique perspectives, we gain a richer, more nuanced understanding of why the resurrection remains one of the most debated and transformative claims in all of history. Now, let's turn our attention to another leading voice in the study of Jesus' resurrection, Dr. Gary Habermas. Renowned for his scholarly rigor, Habermas pioneered what's known as the minimal facts approach. Instead of relying on disputed sources or theological arguments, he focuses on a handful of historical facts about Jesus' death and resurrection that are accepted by the vast majority of scholars, regardless of their personal beliefs. Habermas's minimal facts include the crucifixion of Jesus under Pontius Pilate, the sincere belief of the disciples that they saw the risen Jesus, the dramatic conversion of skeptics like Paul and James, and in many cases, the discovery of the empty tomb. What makes this approach so powerful is its foundation in scholarly consensus. Habermas has surveyed thousands of academic works, demonstrating that these core facts are not just found in Christian circles, but are widely recognized by historians of all backgrounds. Through debates, lectures, and published research, Habermas has challenged skeptics to explain these facts using naturalistic theories, none of which, he argues, adequately account for the strength and consistency of the historical record. His method invites both believers and skeptics to wrestle with the evidence and consider what best explains the transformation of individuals like Paul, the birth of the early church, and the enduring mystery of the empty tomb. So why do these minimal facts continue to compel so many historians? And what do they mean for us today? As the debate continues, we're left with important questions. What is the best explanation for these facts? And what might it mean for our understanding of history and ourselves? The impact of the resurrection claim is undeniable. It led to the rapid spread of Christianity across the Roman Empire and beyond. Even today, billions of people worldwide base their lives on the belief that Jesus rose from the dead. As Jordan Peterson points out, whether you view it historically or symbolically, the resurrection narrative has shaped Western civilization and continues to inspire profound personal transformation. The historical data is compelling, the transformations are remarkable, and the impact is undeniable. Scholars like Wes Huff continue to present overwhelming evidence for the resurrection as the best explanation for the rise of Christianity. So there you have it, multiple lines of evidence pointing to Jesus' existence, death, and the claim of his resurrection. Whether you're a believer, a skeptic, or somewhere in between, I hope these 8 minutes have given you something to think about. The question now is, what will you do with this information? Here's another remarkable fact. Jesus is a unique figure mentioned in all major world religions. Whether as a prophet, teacher, or spiritual leader, his influence crosses religious boundaries and is recognized globally.